Well, joining me now, representing the National Wrestling Alliance, it's heavyweight champion of the world, Nick Aldis, and manager of champion, Austin Idol. What's going on, guys? What's the haps?
Oh, not a lot. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. What's it like right now to be a part of the resurgence of the NWA?
It's very cool. I was mentioning this earlier on. It's the first time in my career that I've really felt like I've been part of something from Jump Street. You know, like
which is funny because the NWA is the oldest wrestling organization on the planet.
Exactly, and it's a very strange but also very sort of exciting situation because obviously we're touching on all this history and we're building our show and our individual brands off of the legacy that was that's already there, but at the same time because we're sort of taking this new delivery system but using kind of more traditional values, it really feels like you're part of something from the beginning. And obviously just because the team was so small from the start when Billy Corgan purchased the NWA, Billy and Dave Lagana are working together on it, and then they contact me and say, this is what we want to do and we'd love you to be a part of it. I mean, that you could, as a talent, you couldn't be involved in something from any earlier point. So it's very cool to see how far we've been able to come in less than a year, and it's exciting to see how far we can go with it.
Well, it's been really cool to watch. Like as a fan, I'm always interested in seeing, especially now, like not only the content delivery methods, but the storytelling methods that you get across to an audience in 2018, because everything is just different now. And watching, whereas before the NWA really proceeded like over all of the territories, so the champion would go from territory to territory. Now, you guys are telling the story of that specific championship on YouTube.
Yeah.
And you, as the champion, are going to the various bigger independent spots across the country that are already existing, correct?
Yeah, and that's the way that we looked at it, and we sort of stumbled on it in a way because I just already had a lot of these existing bookings, and then it just sort of fit into what we were doing with the NWA, and suddenly we were a little taken aback at just how quickly these promotions were like, can we get an NWA title match? And we suddenly realized that, hey, this sort of traditional situation of the traveling champion, that kind of, there was a period where it didn't really work. It didn't fit in the model of the sort of, in the 90s and into the early 2000s. But now it's sort of because of the way things have evolved again with the delivery systems and with all these sort of what so-called super indies and all these different things where everyone's sort of got their own definitive audience and definitive show styles and definitive fan bases, it kind of works all over again. So, and we're, able to slot ourselves into some of those, and I think just because of the timing is right. The Flair 30 for 30 thing was a big boost for us because it just it reminded everyone of the sort of aura and the history. And one of the things that happens when you're involved with WWE, it's like they're evolving so quickly, and they're just, hey, we got a new thing and another new thing and another new thing. It's like, in a way, that the fact that this championship is still the same championship and the NWA is still the NWA and everything, it's like people are sort of gravitating to that and going, that's a traditional, like, that's the world championship, and
I know what that is.
Right. And it's like sometimes we get people who will say, like, why don't they get a new belt? So, and it's like, well, would you change a Stanley Cup?
Right.
Would you or if say to people, would you change the FA Cup in football? It's like, no, that's the belt that Ric Flair held. That's the belt that Dusty had, and and Harley Race. It's like, that's the point. It's the brand by itself.
But it's also like, because for years people talked about the NWA being a dead brand, but what I've kind of been so impressed by is that you've got Billy Corgan and Dave Lagana who came in and bought the rights to the legacy almost, and instead of creating a home promotion, they realized, like, we don't have to create a promotion, we just need to tell stories based around this legacy that will now exist in whatever promotion is your home promotion eventually.
And, and nostalgia will always be huge, right? It doesn't matter whether it's rock and roll or your favorite sporting team, it doesn't make any difference. Nostalgia will never go away. So this is kind of cool because with the NWA, you can grab all that nostalgia audience. Oh man, I remember that one. It won a TBS at 6:05. They remember all that, and regardless of where it was, whether it was in Florida Championship Wrestling or in Texas, where you had all those territories. But what is really cool about this, you've got the nostalgia people who are gravitating, and now people who really didn't really know too much about it, NWA, because it was asleep, and now they're starting to say, hey, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool. And this guy wrestles. I mean, he's a wrestler. I mean, that's what he's an athlete. He's a professional athlete, but he's a wrestler, you know, and that's what I love about Nick. And it did from the beginning before we ever really hooked up, you know, with an agreement that I said, he's an athlete. He's a real smart guy, but he's an athlete. He is a real wrestler. And that's something that's kind of slipped away a little bit over a period of time. And I do really believe, and we all do, that there's an audience out there that says, you know what, that's good stuff.
Yeah, and that's at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? Just putting out stuff that's good.
That's good
Yeah.
stuff, man.
How do you feel, Austin, about as a guy
I feel
who...
great. Look at me.
Well,
I feel.
how could you
Look
not?
at me.
How could you
What kind
not?
of question is that, Sam?
With WWE kind of taking reign over pro wrestling history, you know, you turn on the WWE network and that narrative has kind of shaped around. It used to just be WWE and WWF. That was the history of that promotion, that territory, the Northeast. Now it's like when you think of WWE, it's WWE, it's WCW, it's ECW, it's all the territories, it's world class. Like that is all under this umbrella of WWE. As a guy who was a star in wrestling, but not necessarily for a McMahon, how do you feel about the fact that that has happened with the business?
Well, it's just it's happened, you know. So you can't turn back the clock, and you have to give credit where credit is due. I mean, Vince saw an opportunity, and he went after it, and he grabbed everybody up. He grabbed all the territories, most of the libraries, you know, all the footage. So I mean, give him his due. You know, very, very smart guy. I mean, incredibly successful. But it doesn't really affect me because you know I had a. You know, I was very fortunate, Sam. I'll tell you the truth, man. I was able to kind of carve out my career the way I had control over it, and not in the beginning, because you're cutting your teeth and you're grinding it out and you're grinding it out and you're looking for a break here or a break there. But I was fortunate enough to you can have an opportunity, but doesn't necessarily means that you're going to be successful.
Right.
You may flop, you know, fall on your face, you know, but I had some good opportunities, and my best opportunity really was it was in Memphis, Tennessee. And I was in and out of Memphis, Tennessee for a decade, longer than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I had control over my destiny. I really did. And they knew it. They didn't like it. Promoter knew it, didn't like it, but he was stuck with me.
Why did you have control over your destiny?
Because I was box office.
Right. You were going to do what you wanted to do because you're not going anywhere. People are coming to see you.
Yeah, but I mean, there is a fine line there. I mean, you still have to be a business person.
Sure.
You know, so, hey, look, you know, okay, you don't want to wrestle full time. This is back in those Memphis days. I said, no, I don't want to wrestle full time. And play because Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, and once a month at Rupp Arena in Lexington on a Thursday. Those were the events. Those were the venues I would go to. I didn't care about Thursday night and Friday night. I wouldn't even go to Nashville.
Why?
Why? Because
Yeah.
I could stay home and be on the beach.
You're still making your money.
I'm still making my money.
I see.
I'm getting all the big shots. You're right. I'm getting the money shots.
Uh-huh.
Right? I'm getting the money shots. I mean, I still had to put fannies in the seats.
Sure, of course. But at that time, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is the money days, not weekends.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
Mondays at the Coliseum, right?
Yeah. So my deal was, I want the money shots. You fly me in, you fly me out. So I'd work 3 days a week. 4 days I was off. Do what I wanted to do. So I did that for 10 years, man.
Right. So there was no part of you that's sitting there going like, I really want that WWF run. I really want to see what's going on, in New York, because you had a great deal.
Yeah, I could care less.
Right.
Because I knew what those guys had to do. I mean, they had to just grind it out, and it is a grind. And I've had those moments. I mean, I was in the Mid-Atlantic for a while, and it was a grind. I mean, it would wear you down, man. And finally, I said, I'm out of here.
Yeah. What about you, Nick? Before this thing really starts to take off, and you realize, like, okay, I think I'm going to leave Impact, Global Force, whatever you want to call it at the time. But when you're like, yeah, I'm that's been my home promotion, I'm leaving.
Right.
I don't really know. Did you know what was next, or
No,
did you?
not at all.
Right.
Honestly, I was a little disenfranchised with the business because
In
WWE,
general.
yeah, because I felt like everyone was fighting over the same fan base, and then even WWE started kind of catering to that fan base, and there's nothing wrong with that. It was fine, but it was a fan base that didn't necessarily really fit with.
What fan base is that?
Well, the very discerning fans that enjoy that their focal point is much more on the in-ring wrestling and the particular style and the qualities of that, the elements that are much more about the execution of a wrestling match rather than the emotion and the story and the angle
storytelling,
and the making people feel something. And the emphasis was so much on that, and the people were being rewarded, and again, I'm not bitter about it. I was just looking at it as a businessman and going, that's not me. I can't like that. So there was a part of me that was starting to look at other options and was for the first time in my adult life was contemplating doing something else, because it was like, look, I got into this because I love it, but I also wanted to make money, and I did make money.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm not going to just keep toiling around, just to be a mark. I'm going to, if the money's not there, I'll have to go do something else.
Sure.
Because ultimately I want to live a certain lifestyle, and I've got a kid to feed. So it was like, and for whatever reason, there wasn't an opportunity for me at WWE, and we can talk for 20 years about what they may or may not be, and no one will ever give you a straight answer. And I can tell you what I think it is, but no one really knows for sure, except for probably Vince and Hunter or whoever else. And it's like, when Billy and Dave contacted me first, and just kind of said, and he knew, and he said, I want to know where your head's at, but like, because you seem like you're kind of not, because I had done the little bit again, gone back with to Impact and done those few bits with
Sure.
Worked the angle with Alberto.
And obviously you knew Billy and Dave from Impact.
Dave more so.
Okay.
I knew Billy. Billy had come in at the very tail end. His first set of tapings as creative were my last set
Gotcha.
of tapings, and that was when we were doing me and Mickey were doing the angle with James Storm and all that. And so we worked together maybe on like one or two segments, and it was enjoyable. It was fine. I did I felt like we were on the same page. I felt like he had a good good handle on it. But I didn't really get I didn't know where he was at, what he felt about me or anything like that. And I certainly didn't know what his philosophy was on the business as far as an owner. I'll be honest, where I assumed, because he's an artsy guy and he's a rock star and everything else, I assumed he'd probably be into that hipster wrestling as well. So I was just kind of like, I doubt that he's really that interested in me, because it just seemed like the sensibilities of the fans were sort of heading in a different direction.
So you're a little bit worried that he's like a smart mark with money that's come
I
in.
wouldn't say a smart mark, but just just catering to that audience, because I feel like everyone just sort of rolled over and just gave these guys the keys. You know what I mean? Like I have no issue with those fans, right? If they like a certain thing, like it, I'm cool with it.
Right.
What I take issue with is when they sort of force out everything else, and they sort of they have to they set up shop and take ownership of it and drive everybody else away. I just don't understand that, because I'd rather be the prince of a real big castle than be the king of a shitty little one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, I feel like I'm on my own in that mentality to a degree. Like I don't know what the top guy in WWE makes today, and I'm not counting Cena because he's kind of in and out, right? But let's say whoever it is, right? Whoever the top earner is, right? But,
Roman Reigns, maybe.
Right, maybe. Right. But I'm sure they're making great scratch.
Sure.
But like the overall earnings, I guarantee you that they're probably, even though we're talking 20 years later, so with the economy changing and inflation and everything else, they're probably less than what like mid-card guys were making in the Attitude Era.
Gotcha.
And stuff like that. And it's like, to me, I'd rather, if I had to be on Stone Cold Steve Austin's undercard, but still be over and still make money and stuff like that, I'd rather do that.
That's the castle you want to be the prince of.
Yeah.
As opposed to the king of.
To me, it's like, what's going to draw the most money, and it doesn't have to be me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to be the champion. I don't have to be the top. Not everyone has to kiss my ass and give all my matches 5-star ratings and say, this is awesome, this is awesome. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to be on something hot. And it was like, that's the way I approach the business. That's the way that the guys who I sat under the learning tree of like Kevin Nash and Scott Steiner and Booker T and guys like that. That's the mentality they approached. They approached it like a business, and that's one of the reasons why I have such admiration for, not just because he's such a good friend of mine and we've known each other for years, but like with Marty and the Bucks and Cody to a certain extent, all these guys, because I did Wade Keller's show a few weeks ago, and I said like my advice, and I have no axe to grind with WWE. My wife works there. Of course, I don't want them to fail. I want them to succeed. I want them to thrive.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, there's WWE money coming into your household too, right?
Sure,
yeah.
Right? Like, thanks, Vince. You know what I mean? Like, if I meet the man, I'll shake his hand and say thank you for helping us feed my
kid,
family,
yeah.
right? Like, and even though he's never paid me directly,
right?
I still owe him a debt of gratitude
Sure,
because he created the overall sort of style of the business that I fell in love with that made me want to be a wrestler.
Right.
I grew up watching WWF.
Yeah, because that style that you're talking about is a WWF style.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but having said that, I believe that guys coming into the business, if their ultimate goal should not be just to make it to the WWE. I think your goal should be to draw money.
Right.
I think everyone's goal always should be to draw money, because if you draw money, then you will end up there anyway, or you would think, or you would hope.
Right.
Right.
They want to make money.
But
if you're drawing money, they want the guy drawing money.
If you draw money, you can write your own ticket, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Which is exactly what Austin was just talking about.
Sure.
Right.
And like, people can say whatever they want about me or like TNA and everything else, but like, one of the reasons I was able to stay there and to continue to make more each year was because I kept an eye on certain things that I had an effect on. The UK market, the UK TV ratings, and even the US ratings when I had the title there and stuff. And I would keep track of all that stuff, and I'd be like, well, I'm doing okay here.
Yeah.
And as far, especially with the UK market, I mean, like, I had people I knew people because I worked for Sky Television before I came to TNA. And they owned Challenge and all the same platform. They would tell me like, hey, after you left or after you lost the title, like, numbers went down, and after you left the company, they fell off a cliff. And I kept all this stuff, and to me, I was kind of like looking at all that and going, despite all this evidence, there's no opportunity here. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So, looking at that, I was, I'd done a little bit with Jeff, and I'd done some stuff, with Global Force, and it was, it was fine, it was whatever. And again, Jeff was, he put me in a top spot, it looked like it was starting off on the right foot. We had the stuff at the Orleans in Vegas, and, I went over on Bobby Roode in the finals. We had Chael Sonnen in there, and there was a lot of good stuff going on. It just didn't materialize. But the one thing I wish I hadn't gone back and done those last set of Impact tapings, just because it just didn't do anything for me. But at that, by the time we'd finished up that piece of business, I started to go, I don't know if this is a business I want to be in anymore, And then that's when they called me, so it was sort of fortunate for me in that respect, because when he laid out what his vision was of
storytelling and
and just his overall philosophy on what he felt like pro wrestling was and what he wanted it to be and what we wanted to sort of create, I went, okay, that's what I want to be involved with too.
Right.
So and it's been phenomenal, and I hope that we can continue the momentum and keep growing.
Is it difficult on an emotional level before you get that call to kind of just have to deal with the fact that there's a spot for your wife in WWE, but right now not for you? Or
Sure.
It is difficult. So
I mean, how could it not be?
Right.
I can sit here and say it's not. You know what I mean? Of course it is. Especially when, I'll tell you what I find really interesting is that, like, I went to the Hall of Fame last year, and I'll go again this year, and it's like I meet all these guys, and now especially it's like half of the roster are guys that I've worked with on top. And
you should bring the belt with you when you go.
Like yeah, and then but then also I meet all these guys that used to work there in the office, and they all go, man, I really wanted to sign you. I don't know why you're not there. I don't know why you're not there. Like, why the hell aren't you?
Yeah.
And I just come to the conclusion, like, well, for whatever it is, it's like, it's probably best that I'm not there.
Right.
Because,
and you'll get there when you're supposed to get there, if you get there ever.
Well, my point is that, like, until they resolve whatever the thing is, there's no point me being there anyway, because I wouldn't want to be there if someone's going to try and cut my balls off.
Right.
So I'll just go somewhere else and prove myself.
Yeah, well, you just go somewhere else and be the NWA champion in the meantime. It's really not a bad gig. Yeah,
right.
Draw money. So, Austin, do you think, and I'll
occasionally
I'll ask your opinion on it too, Nick, that this younger generation, and the younger, I guess, several generations, it's costing them that the territory system is not. It's not around. I mean, there are indies and stuff, but the territory system, as we know it, is gone. Do you think that is negatively affecting people's growth? Do you think that it's been replaced in the right way? What's your opinion on it?
Tough question. I mean, everything evolves.
Yeah.
Everything changes. We'll never stop change, whether it's changing for the better or changing for the worse. But and we've talked about this a little bit. We just kind of focus on what we're doing and not really concerned with what anybody else is doing, which I think is just good business anyway.
Yeah.
But what I love about the NWA, it's really an opportunity to create new fans. Because some will stumble on us. Well, hey, wow, that's cool, man. Did you see that? I mean, what Dave and Billy are doing with our 10 pounds of gold on YouTube is just amazing.
You talk about the 10 pounds of gold, and it's really funny because I found myself, like, I wouldn't have really seen a lot of these NWA championship matches because I'm not in the audience for them, right? Like, I'm not at these shows.
Yeah.
But when I read that you won the NWA championship, like, I had this, like, what? Like, I was surprised by it, and I was surprised at how much I was shocked, how much I cared, and I realized that was because of the storytelling that had gone on 10 Pounds of Gold, that I had become emotionally invested in this thing that I didn't even know I was missing, right? And then I become emotionally invested. Oh, yeah, I remember Nick. He was in, let me see what's going on over here. And it really, the 10 Pounds of Gold stuff really did.
It's cool.
Hooked me right in. It hooked me right in.
It changed it for me
Yeah,
completely.
and it's cool. I mean, it's now. It's current. It's cool. And people.
And it's not. It's like it doesn't feel. If it's real life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're figuring out how to tell real stories in wrestling, not doing hokey stuff.
Yeah, you really are, and I think that's the beautiful thing about it is that especially people just happen to find it for the first time and they'll look at it and say, "Wow, I like that," and those episode after episode after episode, and you see all these different athletes and their personalities coming out, and the production is great, and it's just a beautiful thing. I mean, I'm
it feels real because it is real.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Like what we're doing is authentic. The people we're presenting are authentic. There's no scripts. There's no, no one's telling us what to say. We say whatever, and then that becomes the story.
Right.
Like, there's a story in everything. We took, Tim Storm's 53-year-old school teacher who had the NWA title.
I mean, that's what I thought was so unique, that any other promotion, anyone else trying to paint their champion would never tell you, this guy teaches school. Right. This guy has a day job. This guy isn't a full, you know what I mean? Right. That this is how he gets by, but he just wants to be this so bad.
In this era, you cannot lie.
Right.
And that's where a lot of the business has fallen off, I think.
Yeah.
No, you didn't tell me that in the beginning.
No one knows what's true.
Oh,
what
no, you can't lie.
I don't know what to believe with you.
Oh, no.
But you know what I'm saying, right?
Absolutely. The information is too accessible.
The whole perception is reality, and they'll believe whatever we tell them to believe thing is much harder when people can just go like, click, well, hold on. This says here that he was over here before and he wrestled, and what about all this? And we just said, that's compelling in itself, isn't it? Yeah. Everything is compelling. The authenticity is what makes people feel something. And that's what made you feel something about Steve Austin. Is what made you feel something about, tell me the truth. Before Shawn Michaels, when he was, you could tell he was this brilliant performer. I mean, you just see it and just go like, this guy's at a whole different level. He's a savant in the ring. But it was once you started hearing like, hey, did you hear that he got beat up in a bar? Or did you hear that he did this? You hear that suddenly there's this whole new element of interest in this guy because now you're seeing him and he's like throwing little winks to it, and he was, this is nothing new.
Right.
It's just we just took all the elements of it. Look, I know I push people's buttons. I know that there are people who are just like, that guy just rubs me the wrong way, or this guy thinks he's better than everyone else, so this and that, and I go, okay, like. What we're gonna have? We're gonna have a whole roster of guys who are just walking around trying to be everybody's friend,
right?
That's boring,
right?
Right, and the audience is smaller than it used to be because I believe that I'm 31, right? So I'm part of that generation that we were told, get to WWE, make it to WWE, get to WWE. but you have to watch out. Don't say this and don't say that. Make sure you do this and make sure you do that. Make sure you don't say this because you'll get heat. And and it's just like, and you see that. I see it in people's performances. I see it in their eyes.
Right.
I
So when
see the
somebody's
people
cutting
that
a
are like-
promo in character, you can see you're insecure because of all this stuff.
I see it all the time, and I hear about it.
Yeah.
I hear about it, firsthand about like there's too many things. There's too many balls in the air because you're too worried about a million different things that shouldn't be important, because what should be important is what you project on the screen and making people feel something and go, I want to buy a ticket to see that guy get his ass kicked or to kick the other guy's ass.
But when there's the conditioning that goes into, you got to get to WWE, you got to get to WWE, you got to get to WWE, this feeling of once you get there, oh my God, there's nothing other than this. Like, this was the only thing that I could have done. So now that I'm here,
Well, and also
I have to keep a job.
Yeah, and that's where the work really begins.
Right.
And again, like, I had to have an honest conversation with myself where I said, are you trying to get there now because you want to go there and be successful, or are you just trying to get there now because now it's just like proving a point? Now you're just trying to just because
Because it was my goal.
I'm pissed off that everybody's going, how come you're not there? If I had $1
Right.
for every time someone asked me why I'm not in the WWE, I would never need to wrestle again. Okay,
That'd be
So
drawing
and I
money.
just- right. So I just go, okay, what I want to do is be the person that the 10-year-old me envisioned myself to be.
Right.
And right now, this is the perfect platform for me to do that.
Are there people out there that you are hungry to have title matches with?
Oh God,
That you want to really, like, this is the NWA title match I want to see. Me and this guy, me and that guy.
There are many. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that there are a lot of names being thrown around.
Yeah.
But to us, we look at it and go, look how I'm telling you right now. But remember, that it was me that told you to.
Mhm.
This year is going to be the craziest year in the business
Mhm.
for a long, long time. Okay, things are going to happen this year that people are just going to go like, what happened? Like, I can't look at what happened in wrestling in 2018. Yeah, so the possibilities, I think, are much broader than people realize.
Meaning it's guys that you're like, yeah, but that match would never happen. That's
Not
the case
necessarily,
anymore.
Not so fast, my friend.
wow.
And that's the way I'm. And so a lot of these ones that are being thrown around, they may be a much stronger possibility than people realize.
Yeah. It's really interesting because, like, when the last time a guy came in and said, Carl Anderson, before he was in WWE, and he was in New Japan at Bullet Club, and I asked him then, this is all these years ago, like, do you think Bullet Club has kind of run its course, with you guys over there right now? And he goes, we haven't even started. Like, I don't think you fully grasp, like,
Right.
how far this thing can go. And I think about that and think about how far that thing has gone and continues to go. Like, it's unheard of what's happening over there. And I think that this is obviously
Because
part of that spirit,
it starts
right?
in here. If
Right.
you believe it and you have the courage to communicate it to the world, and you have the ability to keep backing up what you say, it will happen.
So who are a couple names of guys?
Marty Scurll,
Yeah.
Cody.
Yeah.
I mean, you name them.
Do you think you'll be at All In?
Do you think I will be?
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think I'll be?
I would hope that you'll be. I think
Well,
it'll be
I take that as a compliment.
Yes.
But it's not up to me.
right.
All I can do is keep projecting the image of the real world's champion, and ultimately, if they want the genuine, the most prestigious, the most historic world's championship in the business at that show, they would be smart to do so.
It's a no-brainer. Really, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it is. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this thing out. I mean, it's the NWA. He's the world's heavyweight champion. Nick is a phenomenal athlete, smart guy, classy guy, great communicator. I mean, he really carries himself incredibly well. I mean, why wouldn't you want him? I mean, why? I mean, really, you just look at and see what the other options are, and there are some great options out there. But I mean, this is a prime opportunity, and the traction, Sam, we're really grabbing some traction here now. This thing is really building, it's
Yeah.
building and building and building, and there will come a point. There's going to be a breakthrough moment.
I mean, when we were in TNA, there was a point where we were in the forgotten locker room. We used to joke we were in the forgotten trailer, and some of the names that were in that room, myself, Kazuchika Okada, the Young Bucks. I mean, we was, hey, have we got anything today? No. I would just play gator golf in the trailer at the far end, and then like and now look.
Yeah.
You know, I remember sending them a text because I just won the TNA World Championship, and then like Okada's headlining the Dome like in January, and the Bucks are there, and I text him and said, like, you know, this sure beats Gator Golf, you know, in the Forgotten Trailer. You know, it's like people have this image of me that like somehow I was sort of always just like had this easy ride, and I was like, you know, the things, because I think half of that is just because I have the look that this particular group of fans just sort of have to be diametrically opposed to because they feel they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I've struggled too. I went through every level of that company. You know what I mean? I went through being there and not being booked all the way to main eventing and, you know, being the world champion. So it's like I understand it. I've been there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Austin, I heard a story about you online.
Just one?
Well, multiple stories about you online.
Not true.
But,
none of them true.
Could you tell me the true story about whether or not you won a battle royal for $5,000 and then cashed the check and left the territory?
That's a hot question. I wasn't in the territory.
You were not there?
I wasn't in the territory.
What do you mean?
I wasn't there. I mean, they flew me in for one night.
Oh, but you were. But I see. Okay, so the story that I've heard is it was in Georgia. It's a battle royal for $5,000.
Okay.
There was actually a real check that was presented to the winner, but it was made out to winner of the battle royal.
Okay.
You got the check in your hand.
I mean, you're saying I won.
You won the battle royal.
I won it. Okay, won the battle royal.
Got the check in your hand.
Let's make sure we have all
Yes.
the facts.
Won the battle
correct,
royal.
ladies and gentlemen.
You had the check. The next morning, you looked at where the bank that the check came from. You went to that bank.
No.
Okay, tell me then.
No. I won. I was living in Florida. They flew me in for the battle royal. I won the battle royal. Presented with a check from the promoter, Fred Ward, who was a notorious thief.
He was.
Notorious thief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cheat, thief, and a liar. And those are the good points. And so anyway.
But when you're presented a check, do you mean you're presented it in the ring
in
as
the
part
ring.
of the show?
Well, it was part of the wrestling event of the evening in Columbus, Georgia. You know, I won the Battle Royal. Fred came into the ring, grabbed the microphone, and they made the big announcement, Austin Idol, yada, yada, yada. He gives me the check. I take the check, fold it up, I put it in my tights, didn't think twice about it.
Right.
Went back to the locker room, took the check out, looked at the check, and wait a second. It's made out to the winner of the Battle Royal, $5,000. It was signed by Fred Ward.
And it's signed.
It's signed by Fred Ward, and I was like, well, I am the winner. That makes sense. It is signed by Fred Ward. He's saying this is the winner, and he earned this money.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think anything, really. It was weird, you know, and I took it home.
You didn't cash it?
No, went back to Florida. I took it home and just put it like in a sock drawer, and it was like, I don't know, 3-4 months later, I stumbled on it, and we happened to be taking a little trip, Christmas holidays, to the Carolinas. So we're going through Atlanta, but as I stumbled on the check, I said, gosh, that check's still there, man. I would just wonder, you know. I think I'm going to cash this thing. My wife said, you can't do that. You go to jail. I said, I don't know why. Why would I go to jail? I said, I'm going to cash it.
You won the Battle Royal.
I won the Battle Royal, signed by Fred Ward. Makes sense to me. So, yeah, I did. So I stopped at a bank in Atlanta. I had no account there. Hadn't been there in forever, right? And we went, hey, Mr. Idol, how you doing? Where you been? Blah, blah, blah. I went over, gave her the check. How would you like this? Hundreds. Fine. Went back to the Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
Cojones. It's called cojones.
That is cojones.
You got to have cojones.
Well, listen, guys, I gotta release you, but before I do, I would encourage everybody to keep up to date with 10 Pounds of Gold. If you just go on YouTube and search 10 Pounds of Gold, you can kind of get the gist of everything that's been going on. And you can go back to the beginning. It's like, 10-minute webisodes or whatever. You just kind of slam through them, and then this great story is told. Anything else that you guys want to promote while you're on?
That's it, man.
That's it.
Thank you. We want everyone to take in the 10 Pounds of Gold. We're episode 17 now. I mean, it's we're building the momentum, and there's a lot more to come.
Well, I love it, and I love what's going on with wrestling right now, and I love that there's new ideas, and there's people that are getting out there, and they're drawing money in new ways that actually relate to to the way the audience can watch now. So congratulations to you guys, and thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
For sure.